This podcast series is supported by members at Patreon. If you want to support this podcast series, head to patreon.com/Cascadian Beer. Getting your product to market can often mean large upfront costs to purchase packaging equipment. So why not outsource this step in the operation? Welcome to the Cascadian Beer Podcast. My name's Aaron and I'm a Cascadian. I have a background in radio and television broadcasting. I'm a music producer and I have a passion for beer. I don't consider myself to be an expert in beer by any means, but I do enjoy and respect the craft and the passion of these brewmasters. I want to learn from these pioneers on what sets them apart from the rest and why they choose to call Cascadia their home. Cascadia is a bioregion in the Pacific Northwest on the North American continent. It is made up of the U.S. states of Washington and Oregon, as well as the Canadian province of British Columbia. In this podcast series, I'll be profiling the unique breweries of Cascadia, a region that has a strong presence on the international beer scene. Traditional packaging of beer was in glass bottles, but today you can find almost anything in a can, including craft beer. In this episode, I'm talking to West Coast Canning to learn about their mobile operation.
Matt Leslie. I am the co-founder and CEO of West Coast Canning.
Cool. And you're not a brewery.
We are not a brewery, no.
But you deal with breweries as well as other clients, right?
For sure, yeah. Yeah, you bet. We've dealt with breweries, cideries, a few other random projects. But yeah, breweries and cideries for sure.
What is the advantage to canning your beer?
To be perfectly honest, there are many advantages to canning your beer. Well, I mean, the main and the most obvious one is the fact that the can itself is much better for the beer itself when packaged correctly. It protects the beer from UV light. It creates a much better seal than a bottle does. And again, when packaged correctly, you can see lower air pickup in a canning process than you would in perhaps a bottling process. And I mean, yeah, there's I could go on forever. The marketing aspect of them as well. There's just a lot of options that make it better.
All right. Well, I had to get that really tough question out of the way first. So when did West Coast Canning start?
We started almost 3 years ago to the day. I think it was end of March, beginning of April 2014. It was kind of our initial start date at Moon Underwater. It was the very first brewery that we canned for. And yeah, it was almost, just over 3 years ago.
How did that first day go?
Not great. No, it went well. I mean, it was great. Clay Potter and the team over there are fantastic. They were new to canning. We were new to canning. We had got to, do it a few times beforehand, but, it ended up well. We got beer in a can. It was great. But, to be honest, we are much better at what we do today than what we did 3 years ago.
So how many canning lines do you have?
We now have 3 here in BC, and we also have 2 in Toronto, actually. So it's been awesome.
So when did you expand to Toronto then? I didn't realize you were out there.
Yeah. So we recently did a little bit of a merger acquisition with the company in based out of Mississauga called Sessions Craft Canning, where we became one sole entity in October. And so now we have 2 canning lines out there as well as a shrink sleeve unit out there as well, which is kind of helping us broaden our landscape traveled and cans packaged.
So you are a co-owner, correct?
For sure.
How did you and your co-owner first come up with this idea?
Yeah. So actually it was totally my business partner, Kevin Peterson. He'd been watching. He loves, that guy has Google alerts set up for everything basically. And, he was sitting there and he was watching the US market, and he was someone in the packaging game a little bit already. And he'd seen the US market was modeling the whole mobile bottling, in the wineries. And someone down there was like, hey, we should do this for cans, reached out to a canning supplier or a canning line manufacturer and said, can you guys do this? And they're like, yeah, sure, we can do that. So they did that back in 2011, and Kevin threw this idea out to me in maybe 2012, 2013. And I was from Prince George, and I was like, I don't want to deal with craft beer. I thought craft beer was caribou. I wanted nothing to do with it. And so I just decided no at that time. And then Kevin hit me with it again, a year later. And kind of the rest was history. We put together a business plan, raised some money. I moved to Vancouver, and then we just went at it.
Moon Underwater was your first brewery. How long until other clients came on?
You know what? We were probably 6 to 8 months early to the whole industry. Because when we came on, it was when Brass Neck had first opened. It was when Main Street was like talking about opening. 33 Acres had just opened. And when these breweries opened, and they were so busy just in their tasting rooms that they literally did not have beer to put in a can, which was like a phenomenal problem for them, but a problem for us. And so, we grinded it out. We had a few customers that we worked with, and they kept us going, it's just Kevin and I. And so for about 6 months, and then we got through to about January of 2015. And then all of a sudden, like the swarm came in, and all those breweries who had opened that previous year were like, we need to go into cans. And it was awesome. And then the whole floodgates opened, and we started working with a ton of breweries, and it's just kind of continued to grow from there.
So what is a typical day for you guys? Like how much prep work goes into getting the line up and running?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, we normally start at the brewery at 7 o'clock. We're probably about 30 to 40 minutes from most of the breweries that we work with. I'd say 75% of them. So our guys show up at the warehouse, 6 o'clock. All the stuff is loaded and ready for them, kind of in the bay. All their cans, their trays, their rings, their lids, canning equipment, quality control equipment. It's all kind of set up there in a line. They bomb it all into the truck, check their sheet, make sure they're good to go. Head on out to the brewery, show up at the brewery, unpack, get everything all set up, do the clean in place, get the quality control set up, swab the line to make sure everything's clean and sanitary before they go. And then they push the button and they start running beer. And that, that all takes, they show up at the brewery at 7, normally up and running between 8:15, 8:30. And then from there, it's just, depending on how the beer is set up for us, temperature wise and carbonation wise, we'll move anywhere from 7.5 hex to 9 hex an hour and just kind of go to town.
Cool. And then the cans stay at the brewery, or do you bring them back here for them?
So the cans stay at the brewery. Once they go on to the pack out table, as we call it, the brewery does their thing. Either it goes into their coolers that they have on site, or into their tasting rooms, or it goes into a distribution center like Direct Tap just down the road from us here, and then they'll distribute it from there.
So you mentioned Toronto, your name West Coast Canning. Do you deal with anybody down in the States?
So on our shrink sleeve side, which is another side of our operations that basically feeds our mobile canning side, as well as, customers who have their own canning lines, we will produce those cans for them and ship them out. And so we ship cans to Alberta. We ship cans to Washington, Oregon, like once in Idaho, I think. But yeah, mainly on the West Coast, BC, Alberta, Washington. There's a fair bit there.
Right. So what is the craziest beer that you guys have put into a can so far that you can think of?
There's been a couple. The guys at Twin Sails probably could be the top 5 of all of them. They have totally redefined what limited release cans are like here in BC, maybe even in Canada. I don't know. You could just peruse their Instagram, and every can that they have would be one of the craziest ones we've done. They've done a triple IPA, which was in the US, there's guys doing that, but up here, there's not a ton of that going on, especially into cans. You might see that in the tasting room, but not really in the can. Oh, they've got some other crazy stuff too. And there's even more coming down the pipe. It's just just Twin Sails. Those would be the ones.
So from a brewery's perspective, how long is the planning stage with you guys? Because obviously there's, they have to design the label, get it printed. You guys have to wrap the can. First you got to get the cans, then you got to wrap the can. And yeah. So how long is that planning process from ordering the cans, brewing the beer, and then it's out the door?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question that doesn't get asked very often. So for new artwork, so let's say a brewery comes to us and says, we want to put our new double IPA into a can. We say, okay, great. We provide them an artwork template, which they will work with our label provider if it is going into a shrink sleeve can. That whole process generally takes about 5 to 6 weeks to get to our facility. Once we have a production date from our label supplier, we'll then work with the brewery on their brew schedule to set up a canning date so that we can time it nicely. But from recipe development kind of to in the can, you're looking at 6 to 8 weeks, I would say. Sometimes, being that we're in the beer industry and not all of us are as organized as we'd like to be, it's sometimes a lot quicker, but yeah, about that time.
All right. So, but you guys are canning now with the upcoming summer every day, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's every day and then some weekends.
So what about a brewery that might not be putting their stuff into bottles or cans at the moment, or only doing bottles? What advantages would they have coming to you guys for canning?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, the biggest and the foremost ones that just smack you in the face are you don't have to buy a $150,000 canning line that you might only use once a week. Not even once a week. Some of these guys only use them once a month, so it's going to take you forever to pay off that line. Of course, you'll scale up and you'll begin doing more, but what you're going to do is you're going to tie up capital. You're going to tie up warehouse space that should be dedicated to brewing beer. You're going to tie up space with cans and all that. Our service just gives breweries an ability to take advantage of basically a pay-as-you-go basis. Of course, you pay a premium for it. It's something you contract out, but 100% it is worth it in the initial runs to get to a point where you can then, our business model is set up for some breweries are going to buy their own canning lines. That is completely and perfectly normal, and so they should. Some breweries, it just does not make sense for them in a certain period of time to do that. So, mainly just to go back to that question, it's just the cost and the space savings that it allows for sure.
And you guys have quite a big warehouse because you've just moved to this location that we're at today, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we have 25,000 square feet here that give breweries, we can provide storage options for printed cans. We do the ton of the sleeve cans where we get them all ready for them before the actual day of canning. And we try and do all that for them. And then, charge it out at what we consider to be a fair rate and just make it easier for them to get into cans.
So you just got a third line.
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to get a fourth line?
Yeah, we will need a fourth just because our third line right now, come this winter, we'll go to Alberta full time and we'll be set up out of Calgary full time come March of next year. So, there will be one here that we'll need three here. So, there'll be a fourth.
And just from your observation as kind of an outsider of it, how do you feel the beer scene is in Vancouver? Do you think it's getting a little too big, or do you think this is kind of a comfortable ratio that we're at right now?
Well, you know what? It's a really good question and people ask it literally all the time because it's just simple business. People believe that when things become too saturated, which is totally perspective. It's just someone's idea of what saturated is really. There's always going to be a bubble, and I put quotation marks up because that's just like an industry standard term, or not our industry in relation, but just like industries, and so I personally don't believe it's even close to being saturated just because of, you look at the guys in Washington and Oregon and there are literally twice as many breweries, if not more. And they still have breweries popping up. They have breweries going out of business too. It's not bulletproof, this business. Bad business and bad beer is going to be what is ultimately some people's downfall, unfortunately. But the Vancouver market, the Vancouver consumers, they want more beer. I'm a beer consumer. I go to all these places every weekend, and I'm sure you do too. It's not going away. But certain things are going to happen. The consumer is going to become more educated. They're going to know what good beer is. They're going to need to be persuaded by people's social media as to the new swag that they're carrying, or the new beers that they're releasing, or the new events that they're doing,
or that new patio.
Yeah, totally. Right. those are going to be game changers. And we're going to see, in the next 5 to 10 years, twice as many breweries in this province, I think personally, and because we can support it is my thought.
Right. And then very tough question for you, because I know you got clients, but what's your favorite beer?
You know what? I'm going to say I really have enjoyed the session ales have become a big thing, in the last year. Everyone loves those hoppy beers, but they're not the ones you can put back about 6 of them, just in case you're on that park in a hot summer day. So I've really enjoyed the session ales. The Talisman from Strange Fellows is one of my favorite go-to beers. It's just so good. I'm not going to use the word crushable because that's that's what everyone uses, but it's great. 33 Acres. We just started canning their ISA as well. That's a heck of a beer. It's just really good drinking. So yeah, probably just the ISAs.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, sir.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Thank you so much to Matt for his time, because it was a very busy day when I was there, so really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Matt. And the next time you go to grab some beer from your local liquor store or from the brewery itself, and you grab a pack of cans, just remember how much work has gone into that. Thank you so much again for listening. If you really liked this episode and enjoyed it, why not leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cascadian Beer, or on Twitter at Cascadian Beer. And remember, this is an independently produced podcast series, and your support can come from a simple $1 per episode donation at Patreon by going to patreon.com/Cascadian Beer. Thank you so much again for listening. And until next time, remember, support your local.